Welcome to episode 16 of Echo Without Noise. The day I stopped performing. There was a time I wore my life like a costume. Not a lie, but a layering of small, subtle performances handed to me by others. I thought if I moved right, spoke right, didn't disrupt too much, I'd be admired. I was. But admiration didn't feel like belonging. It felt like standing in a spotlight that didn't warm me. It felt like clapping for a version of myself that wasn't real. The applause echoed, but it didn't land. Inside, I was tired. Not tired from work or worry, but tired from distortion. From the act of shrinking, reshaping, censoring. I was honest with others in the ways that made me likable, but dishonest with myself in the ways that kept me small. One day, in the middle of this quiet ache, I stumbled on a quote. Don't deceive people. Sincerity is the best way to impress people. I paused. Not because it was profound, but because it was permission. It said what my soul had been whispering beneath all that effort, that I didn't need to perform to be worthy. Sometimes I think I was raised to be agreeable more than honest. To make myself small for the sake of someone else's comfort. To be kind even when it meant swallowing what hurt. I realized how dishonest I'd been, how often I'd dimmed my voice to match someone else's rhythm. How often I blurred my boundaries not for applause, but to avoid unwanted tension. To keep the peace. To dodge the conflict that could have been, but didn't need to be. But now I just let it go. I no longer bend to avoid ripples. I let people feel what they feel. I stay honest, and I stay quiet. Not out of fear, but out of self-respect. Some take it as cold, distant, detached. But I know what it is, my nervous system finally trusting me. It's the kind of peace you earn not by becoming perfect, but by becoming real. I've stopped trading parts of myself for harmony that never belonged to me in the first place. Stopped apologizing for being too much just because someone else wasn't ready to witness it. And slowly, I've begun to feel safe. Not everywhere, but somewhere. Not with everyone, but with myself. I remember asking myself, almost audibly, what if I stopped performing and just started being? That question changed everything. Not all at once. Not with grand declarations or sudden shifts. But slowly. Gently. One choice at a time. I started noticing the moments I bent away from my truth. The yes I didn't mean. The nod I gave to avoid tension. The silence I offered instead of my story. And I began honoring who I already was before the edits, before the masks, before the polish. Sincerity with myself became the gateway to sincerity with others. Not in a loud way. Not in a way that demanded recognition. But in the quiet way that rebuilds trust from the inside out. Choosing sincerity felt like returning to my original shape. Not one I created to fit in, but one that already existed beneath the effort. And with that return came something unexpected, confidence. Not the kind you announce. Not the kind that wins arguments or dominates rooms. But the kind that allows you to breathe fully in your skin. The kind that says, I am enough, without needing validation. Enough to build a life. Enough to heal what felt fragmented. Enough to belong without blending in. It's strange, really. Once I stopped trying to be agreeable, I started feeling present. The more honest I became with myself, the more honest others became with me. People didn't respond to my effort, they responded to my essence. Not the polished edges. Not the curated image. But the presence that remained when I stopped reaching for approval. That presence is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. But it stays. When the crowd fades. When the applause dies down. When no one is watching. It stays. There's more to this journey, more stories behind the letting go. But this moment marks a beginning. A tender turning point. And if you're listening with a lump in your throat, recognizing yourself in these words, maybe this reflection is your whisper too. Maybe this is your invitation to come back to the voice that got quiet. To the truth that got blurry. To the self you buried beneath performance. You don't need permission. You already have presence. And presence is enough. So if you've ever felt like you're impressing your way out of your own voice, this is your reminder. Come back. To the quiet. To the truth. To the you that doesn't need applause to feel real. That's where the courage lives. Not in the performance, but in the being.